Welcome, fans, to episode 5 of Shooting from the Hip with the Kingpin, Angel Medina, and I am, as always, the gentleman, Jack Kilby. We are here today to do an episode on a controversial topic, yet one that really has been, much debated over the years in the professional wrestling business, and that is the use of blood. But before we get into that and our special mystery guest who's going to do a run-in, Angel, how are you tonight, sir?
Man, I'm doing great, man. I had a great, the weekend's already starting good. I mean, it was awesome. But I mean, it can't compare to what you just recently had. I mean, you had a great show this past weekend. Was it May 6th?
Yes, it was May 6th at the Earl Armstrong Arena in Ottawa. It was the big Great North Wrestling 15th anniversary event, and was history made there. Do you
No,
know what
I
I
heard it
mean
was,
by history?
absolutely. I heard it was great. I mean, the fans were in attendance. They were standing on their feet. I mean, every match was a nail biter. I mean, it was just not one boring match in the whole card. I mean, I wish I was there to see it live. I mean, watching it on video doesn't give it justice. I mean, I like I said, seeing it live was just something that everybody was talking about. So, I mean, I've been to a lot of live shows, but like I said, just hearing it from the fans' perspective, I mean, it was a nail biter. So, I mean, congratulations on that first show. And you having one coming up real soon, right?
We've got a huge show coming up on July the 15th in Smith Falls, Ontario at the Memorial Center. Tickets are already on sale at ticketweb.ca, and I suggest you get those quickly because we have a huge star-studded lineup. Today, moments ago, actually hours ago, I announced that we have, enacted a coup in terms of signing fresh off the Backlash pay-per-view from the WWE one Carlito Caribbean Cool, which is a major deal. He's coming in, and we have one Ted Hart, who is returning to Great North Wrestling and making his, I guess, in a number of years. I can't even guesstimate his first appearance in Canada, and he is on a mission to prove that he not only still has it but has lots of gas left in the tank. But before we go any further, I want to address the elephant in the room, and that is, well, it's a pretty big elephant. Some fans have been, questioning why I was involved in the match where the Magnum McLaren was taking on Wes Briscoe. And I want to shout out the Magnum and Big Daddy Diamond. The three of us are now collectively known as the Big Money Players. And all I have to say to that is you should always respect authority, because if you don't, there are going to be consequences. And I am pleased to announce that Magnum and Big Daddy Diamond are going to continue their path of dominance in Great North Wrestling and the business in general on July the 15th in Smith Falls. So watch out for that.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I saw what you just did recently with Wes Briscoe. I didn't even know it was him. I'm going to keep it honest, man. I thought it was one of the baldies in the ring. I really thought Magnum was Wes because I'm so used to him with the long hair. So, but I mean, like I said, it was a great match. I mean, it was just back and forth action. Like I said, it was a nail biter. It was entertaining. I can't wait to see the second running between Magnum and Wes. I mean, like I said, I was very well entertained. I mean, I was excited.
Well, I won't say much on that, but I will say this. Magnum, achieved a clean victory without any sort of chicanery involved. And I'm going to have chicanery. I'm going to have to work with the Great North Wrestling Executive Committee and determine whether or not Mr. Briscoe is in line for a shot or Magnum needs to go on to bigger and better things. Because make no mistake, Magnum is a star of the future.
Well, I mean, I agree. I mean, I was watching this match. I mean, Magnum's a young, upcoming star. I mean, very talented. I mean, he still has a lot to achieve, like I said, but you got to start somewhere. And he's hungry, just like any type of fighter, wants to make a name for himself, and he can't It's better to make a lot of enemies than a lot of friends. I mean, the guy has a lot of talent. So he's just trying to make a big bang and put his name out there because there's a lot of talented individuals in the world of professional wrestling. So, I mean, Magnum is stepping on the right toes to put his name out there to be noticed. So if he continues doing that, I'm not going to lie, I'll be probably seeing him in one of the major promotions real soon.
Oh, without a doubt. But Great North Wrestling is Canada's premier independent wrestling organization, as seen on the Hannibal TV. And I would encourage all fans to watch in the weeks to come. We're going to be releasing the footage of the event in which myself and shout out to Matt Granahan, King of Connecticut, we did the commentary duties. It's going to be very entertaining and much more to come. Smith Falls, July the 15th. Get those tickets now, ticketweb.ca.
Awesome, man. I mean, the next show, bro, like I said, Teddy Hart, one of the I'm not familiar with Teddy. I never crossed paths with him. I mean, the cat thing, I don't feel it, I mean, but hey, I mean, he's a hell of a talent. Like I said, me studying right now doesn't even, because he's so phenomenal in regards of his in-ring ability, and Caribbean cool, Calito, representing the Puerto Rican nation, I mean, that's going to be just nonstop action. So, I mean, you're starting it off right, man, with two top dogs, especially Magnum, say three. It's really going to kick off right,
Plus, the staple of Great North Wrestling, I would be remiss not to mention that we have also signed the Blood Hunter for July the 15th at Smith Falls. And I think the fans, as they saw today, should subscribe to the Hannibal TV and watch for instant updates as they occur, because we have some information forthcoming. I'm involved night and day in terms of negotiations with talent. There, surprisingly or not surprisingly, are not a great number of individuals that are lining up to face the Blood Hunter after what he did to Cowboy James Storm, and not taking anything away from Cowboy James Storm, but those that were in attendance will never forget that particular match. And we are lining up some very interesting opposition for the mighty diabolical Blood Hunter come July the 15th as well.
And it's funny. I like you're talking about Blood Hunter. Blood Hunter is a very, very phenomenal beast in the ring, But James Storm, not knocking his ability in the ring, he's not a hardcore, no nonsense type of guy. I mean, he's a technical wrestler. Again, I'm not taking away from his abilities, but I mean, compared to a New Jack, a Vic Grimes, a Homicide, myself, I mean, Blood Hunter has not faced individuals like myself. Lucky for me, I'm not wrestling as we speak, but individuals like New Jack and stuff, guys who will just really put him, to the grindstone, really, test his mettle, if you may say, hasn't, for my opinion, guys that he's wrestling are not at that level to face the Blood Hunter. He needs somebody with more grit,
Well, we are working night and day to find suitable opposition for the Blood Hunter. So I'm going to encourage all the fans to keep, again, subscribe to the Hannibal TV and keep watching for details. But on to the topic at hand, which is the use of blood in wrestling, which is a good compendium to our last show, which addressed hardcore wrestling, of which, of course, there was blood. And you actually were the one who suggested that this would be a worthy topic of discussion based on, the effects it's had on the industry and fan perception of blood in wrestling. So before we get into the specifics, I know you being an ECW original and a hardcore individual yourself, this isn't something that you're not unfamiliar with. Would that be a correct statement?
No, absolutely. I mean, I've been in many, many bloody matches in my career. I mean, it is blood in wrestling is just something that's just part of the business. I mean, it tells a story. I mean, of the animosity wrestlers have towards each other when you shed blood in the ring. It's just something that I know for a fact that fans desire. When there's red, there's green. I mean, puts asses in seats when you see a very hardcore bloody match.
In terms of the polarizing aspects of blood and wrestling, I think we could go through the good, the bad, and the ugly of the use of blood, and you know, taking a look at the fact that we're in a more, what's the word? I don't want to say PG environment, but a more sanitized
More
environment
cautious.
for, yeah, more health conscious, et cetera, for professional wrestling. It's certainly not the heyday of blood and wrestling, but if you look at the backlash pay-per-view that just happened with Brock Lesnar, from what I've seen online, that was his choice to open himself up the hard way and bleed. So there's obviously still a spot for it, or an attraction. But to begin with, what is your opinion in terms of the good when blood is used in wrestling?
Well, I mean, you can't use blood. eh, Let me explain it in a better term. The good about blood is that it takes it to the next level in the ring. Meaning, when you start a storyline with a let's just use a New Jack for example, you don't want to have the blood from the beginning all the way to the end, man. You want to build it up. Magnum TA, it tells a story when you get to that. Like I said originally, when you get to that level of shedding blood in the ring, it just builds excitement. Fans love to see that. It just builds up a very I don't know. It just people want to see blood in the ring. You know what I mean? It's just hard to explain because, like I said, everybody bleeds now back then in the 90s, and it just took away from the meaning behind it. But when you have a storyline and a feud and it gets to that level, that means it's just people are like, wow, this is serious, man. This is like end all be all. Or when there's blood shed and a guy's injured, oh my God, this guy is injured, like when Snooker got power drived on the concrete and he's bleeding everywhere and stuff, and he's taken away in the neck brace, and people are like, oh my God, they see this the severity of what just happened. Or Dusty Rhodes, even though there's no blood, his arm getting broken by the Four Horsemen, they see the seriousness of how this is getting taken to. So I mean, that's just a saying. I mean, it just tells a good story, when you have it in the right moment.
Yeah, I would agree, especially back in the day, so to speak, that blood really added to the drama of a match. When you're thinking of, like, just off the top of my head, a couple that come to mind is Ric Flair against Dusty Rhodes in
If you
Starcade.
will.
That was '85, and Brett versus Stone Cold in WrestleMania 13. Those matches are,
Legendary.
yeah, legendary and largely remembered, on one standpoint, from the use of blood. So rather than being, gratuitous there, it really advanced the storyline. Speaking of yourself and your career in ECW, though, do you have any times where you were asked or blood came up that you thought it was a good thing, or conversely, when you were suggested to bleed and it just didn't make sense, and how did you handle that?
Well, during the time when in ECW, and I don't want to mention no names, there were certain individuals that were doing a lot of drugs and a lot of needle sharing, and of course our matches were bloody. So my concern, and I never said nothing because I just didn't want problems. I was still new and new to ECW, so I didn't want to lose any opportunities. So, but I was scared, because AIDS was still hot. I'm not like hot, but it was around, and other blood transmitted diseases and stuff like that I was concerned about. And after I saw that, because you have to have a lot of trust in the guy you're in the ring with to shed blood, and I just was afraid to catch something. But the only way I was able to avoid any type of contact with them is just to keep my distance, keep my hand something in between us. So, I mean, I know it's silly when you have this. I mean, there's not much space between both of you, but I was trying my best to keep my distance, um, because again, I don't want to rock the boat in regards to that matter. So that's the only time that, I mean, many occasions that it was bad, But again, I never spoke up because again, I was just doing my job to entertain the fans.
Now, when you say that it was bad, what do you mean? That it was gratuitous, or it didn't make sense, or it was, rather, I think
No,
ECW got a bad reputation, at least at the beginning, for using blood in like cold matches without, a storyline or any sort of a build. Was that the situation with you?
a little bit, but the thing when I say bad, it was meaning I was saying bad because that was instilled in my brain. When you see, drugs and sharing needles and stuff like that, you already set the expectation like shit. You know, what's the first? Okay, if you think about it, Jack, if you saw a wrestler shooting up, somebody else's blood, and you're gonna bleed in the match, and you're like on the card with that individual, and you're supposed to bleed. I mean, be honest. What is the first thing that comes to your head?
Yes, I
AIDS.
I'm picking up what you put down. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
that's the bad, like, because I already like my mind was like, God damn it. So all I kept thinking about is, man, I just can't get close to him because what if he has something, and I don't want to catch something. I mean, I did my job and I wrestled. I remember my spots, I remember my match, but in my brain, that's all I kept thinking about. Or I was wrestling him, and then I swapped out. I hate saying it, messed up, but like I swapped out with DeVito. Like we're fighting, and then and I go over there. Like he punches me, and I stagger to DeVito's direction, and then I throw DeVito, Dorito in his direction, and then I attacked the other guy. So I mean, I didn't do it on purpose. It was just DeVito was more I'm not saying fuck it, but DeVito knew I was always a warrior. A worry, not warrior. But he DeVito's like, we'll be fine. DeVito had a more like, it'll be okay. I've been in the business long enough to deal with it. So I didn't mean to like say I threw him to the wolves without him knowing. It's just that, and I told him later. He's like, "Dick, I beg you to tell me," So, But that's all it is. It's just that was my only like. That's when I say bad. It was already in my brain before I walked through the ring.
So, how do you feel about coming from the extreme promotion back in the day that gets a lot of acclaim or derision depending on what side of the fence you're on for blood and hardcore? What are your thoughts on the promotion? Well, I hate to say promotions, but the folks that put on the death matches with the light tubes and all that stuff, and people are chopped up and bleeding like stuck pigs out there. We're thinking of most notably the guy that gets a lot of heat to this day for running those type of shows, as Mr. Cornette would say, the Outlaw Mud Show is the IWA, and Mr. Ian Rotten. What are your thoughts on that? Do you not think that is really difficult to sustain the interest of fans and become such a niche audience, on top of a niche audience? I'll pronounce it correctly this time.
Well, I mean, but you got to look at it like this. And I'm just making a joke, but it kind of falls into that spectrum. It's like watching porn, right? Some people watch porn and they go, "Dude, I'm just tired of I need a storyline. I need Jack the plumber to come to the house and goes, 'Hey, miss, I'm here to clean your pipes.'" And then, and it builds, and and he goes, "Oh my God, it looks like you got a big tool there," and then some. And,
Yes,
and then all of a
yes.
sudden it builds up. But sometimes once you get to the just like those edit videos, and you're like watching it, like, oh man, after a while it gets boring
Mhm.
because you're just going to the meat of it. You're not building up anticipation. You're not building up the excitement. Like I said, watching porn, you're like, oh, here it comes, and it builds up that excitement to see the magic moment. So yeah, I mean, it is a negative when Ian Rotten, and I don't care. I don't give a fuck about Ian Rotten because his show sucks. And I keep it 100. It's just that it doesn't have a story. People just go there just to see blood, and there's nothing that makes any sense of why they're doing it, why they have animosity towards each other, why are they, killing each other with fluorescent light bulbs. You have to tell the fans something so they could say, man, I got to be back next week. What is going to happen next week? And that's what I'm saying. It's just horrible watching an action movie and you just come in the middle of the action and don't understand why you're shooting, this individual. What was the reason? But when you watch the whole movie from beginning, you're okay. Now I understand. Now it makes sense. now I can't wait to see what happens next. That's all it is, man. It's a story, a beginning and a middle and an end.
What about the major criticism that you hear from some of the quote unquote old timers that, and I'm speaking of mostly Jim Cornette, that if you're continuously doing these sort of things with the, your opening move isn't a lock up and a hip toss, but a smash on the head with a barbed wire baseball bat, that, it used to be called hot shotting, but it's really desensitizing your audience. So you have to go, you have to top that show after show, or else it becomes, commonplace. And it's really unhealthy for a promoter or a booker to encourage these things, because the pressure will be on the wrestlers to top it. What do you think of that?
I mean, you're right. I agree 100%. It's just so hard to, like I said, I mean, Jim Cornette's correct. You'll always be known for something like that, just simple. Again, I'm not trying to be a dick with everybody, like Nick Gage, not telling a story and fucking almost slicing his arm open and fucking almost dying. And for what? There was no, I mean, if you're going to do something like that, you got to at least have a fucking story. Like, oh my God, the fucking feud that these guys had. And at this point, Nick Gage almost lost his arm, and, and you build that story, like he can't come back to wrestling because he has no feeling in his right arm or left arm or whatever, and he's going to rehab.
Was that not Arquette?
I can't remember. I just remember seeing the clip of it, and he did something where he fucking just gutted his arm.
I think that was David Arquette, and that was
no, that was that was David Arquette. But now I got to look it up. But I think Nick Gage did slice himself under the arm.
I wouldn't be surprised knowing Nick Gage's work with the pizza cutter.
But the Nick Gage with the David Arquette, I saw that documentary, and that happened. Sorry, I'm just trying to see if I can find it. But I mean, what do you think? I mean, you asking me these questions. You've been in the business quite a while. I mean, do you feel that once you start something like that without building a story, you'll always be known as it's just like the clowns at a rodeo. The clowns are there to get fucking run over by the bull. So there's no surprise. Oh, here comes the clowns. They're gonna get tore up. You know what I mean?
I think we've talked about this before in other contexts, but the major detracting factor for me about gratuitous hardcore and blood is the fact that it becomes a substitute for what do fans and actually, the wrestlers and the people behind the scenes, what really makes the product something that is memorable and good. It's storytelling, and it's creating that emotional response with the audience. And I think you can plumb that well a couple of times, and then it just becomes something that, fans aren't going to react to. And at the end of the day, a lot of people will say, that was an interesting match, blah, blah, blah. The actual product in the ring is secondary to, did they tell a great story? Why are everyone now popping over the bloodline? Because the storytelling was so good. Do you remember necessarily the match between Zayn and Owens against the Usos at WrestleMania? I saw it. I don't. But I do remember the outcome and the fact that you have an emotional connection with the audience. And that's what Great North Wrestling is trying to do. Provide a traditional based product with storytelling and angles that go from, show to show, but also incorporate, we have to change and move on, but you will never see gratuitous. It has to make sense in Great North Wrestling. If there's blood or a spot like that, or it's integral to a character and their development, fine. But you're not going to see the row of light tubes come out and, a 20-man battle royal where, it's just blood. That to me is not appealing, and it's not what I believe the fans really want to see.
No, I agree. And just to go off track, and the reason I was looking down is I was looking for that information, so fans, I was not being engaged. But in 2009, Nick Gage did fight in CCW against Thumbtack Jack, which he cut his arm, and he was Thumbtack Jack. It was the 8th annual bout of Combat Zone Wrestling in 2009. And then Nick Gage flatlined for 7 minutes, supposedly for 7 minutes, when he was getting like helicoptered to.
Oh yes, I remember that. That was in a backyard somewhere outdoors.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the moment where he almost died for the business, and that's anyway. I was looking it up so I could at least have the facts to the story that I was talking about.
And no disrespect to any. Don't get me wrong. I don't mean any disrespect to a wrestler that does that, or whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's certainly not something that I would do, or I would have the intestinal fortitude or testicular fortitude to do. But it's just not what I think. There's a very, very small audience for which that is appealing, and it is not appealing to a majority. And Angel, you had mentioned before that this sort of thing, blood, has the real propensity to turn off casual fans, and I think that's a very salient feature.
Yeah, and again, Nick Gage, I'm not like shitting on him or nothing. I mean, it takes a lot of testicle fortitude to do those type of matches and put your body through these type of blood and guts, from just all these wrestlers who just cut themselves open real deep, and put their life on the line every day, and I'm not knocking them. I commend them for it. Would I do it? No. And it's not because I'm a pussy. It's not that. I just like to tell stories. I like to, if I'm going to do something like that, I want to build a story from the beginning and have this awesome match at the end. Like I told you before at the previous show that we did, when I go to a show and people go, "Hey, Angel, you're going to do this type of match, it's 5 minutes, you're going to come in, bang, bang, bang." And then, oh, okay. There's no excitement. I go, all right, because it's not a story, because I know I'm not going to come back and face that guy again. So that's why, I don't have the passion. But when, like I said, if I was working for an organization, it's like, hey, we're going to do this major angle. We're going to have you work with Magnum, let's just say, whatever. And he turns on you, because, you were doing a tag team, old school versus new school, and you guys are tag team. And then we build up a story, and then he turns on me. It's a 6-month storyline of us tagging for 2 months, 2.5 months. And then he puts me in the hospital, and then we build this massive story for another 3.5 months. And then a big climatic on the 7th month, you know what I mean? Or a year, like people are like, holy crap, this is awesome. People remember that, so that's all I'm saying, man. I mean, I'm just not into the straight up running to the ring, sliding through the ropes, and just wham, 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 wham. Would I do it? Yeah. But am I excited about it? No. You know what I mean? That's the
problem. I know exactly what you mean. Why are we still talking about wrestling, so many years later? It's because when we were growing up, we were exposed to, those long-term storylines, such as Orndorff turning on Hogan. I remember that vividly. The Steamboat crushed larynx deal with Savage, on and on and on. And I think if that is missing, it becomes less than it could be, and we're missing the mark. But
not let me cut you off, but I am reading, and I want to address something like Bat, he has a point. When those two guys were stabbing each other at the bottom of their feet with hypodermic needles, he felt that was too much. I mean, what was the reason you were doing that? Why would you do that? Why? That's the thing, the why part. And would I do it? It depends on what story I'm telling. I wouldn't do it. But if I was going to do it, I'd be like, okay, sell it to me. If you were the promoter and say, Angel, I got this idea, we're gonna do this, and you're gonna get hypodermic needle stabbed at the bottom of your feet, I'm like, okay, well, first, how much? 2, let's it got to make sense. Why? What's the purpose? What's the reason he's doing that for? You know what I mean? And stuff. Like when I wrestled, okay, this is a perfect example. When I wrestled Balls Mahoney and Chili Willie, and before we did the pay-per-view, right? I threw I threw balls to a flaming table and close off the show. And then we were building up the pay-per-view. So what made sense at the time is that they were going to go, hey, Chili Willie and Balls Mahoney is going to face the Baldies. Angel's going to get put through the table, the flaming table because Angel put balls through a flaming table on the TV taping, which didn't have nothing to do with the match. We just lit up the table and set him on fire and threw him through it. Now he wants revenge. So that's why they had the flaming tables. I want revenge, Angel. You burned my skin. Now I'm going to get you, man. So the next match we're going to have is a flaming tables match. And the loser and the winner, the loser has to be put through a table. That's when the fans were like, holy shit, that's exciting. They didn't know that was going to happen. So that's what I'm saying. That's just that's when people just like sit there and go, I cannot wait to see that match, it just makes sense.
What about the various methods of getting color, as they say in the industry?
You calling me colored? That's racist.
Getting color.
Okay.
Oh yeah. You're not commenting on my tan this week, so I guess it's fading a little bit. The major method that we think of is the using the blade and even the blood capsules and all that sort of stuff in the mouth usually. What is it that it would take for, say it's within the context of a good storyline, et cetera, what would it take for you to, when and the times that you got color, how did you do it, and was that ever a consideration for you, the fact that you'd have to physically harm yourself, so to speak?
You lost me on that one. Repeat that one more time, because I'm just trying to like understand.
So when you think of the various methods to get color, being cutting yourself hard way, blood
capsules,
yeah. When you were asked to get color, did the way that was suggested, be it a gut shot where you have the capsule in your mouth, or run into a post or cut yourself, did that come into play when you were deciding whether or not that was a good thing, and how did it factor into your decision process?
Well, I mean, there was no like in ECW, there was not like a point. Like I just remember like there was something like a moment. There was no blood capsules, or which I didn't know where to get blood capsules, but maybe a Halloween store. But I just remember like, and I'm just making this up here, like, oh, you're attacking New Jack or you're attacking Balls Mahoney. Axel Rotten's hurt on the outside of the ring. All of a sudden you hear, Vic Grimes, New Jack's music hits. He comes in, slides in, hits the Vito with the crutch, shoots you off, backdrops you. You turn around, he hits you with the vacuum cleaner. You get up and sell. All of a sudden he picks up a pane glass thing and he hits you with it. Oh, okay, that's where you get your color. So you knew the moments when it was going to happen. And when it was asked, I was a soldier, I was just one of those guys like, whatever I felt internally, I kept it to myself. Like the Connecticut fall, I was supposed to do that. But when they asked me to do it, I'm like, fuck. I hope my will is up to date. I hope my, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I was like, shit, man, am I gonna survive this? And I trust Jack, but again, I still had butterflies. Like, God damn it. So, but I always had butterflies, but I was a trooper. I never sat there and go, well, unfortunately, it's Sabbath. I can't do it. I just was like, okay, boss, and I just went to the back and sat there and go, shit, got to do it. Got to keep pushing forward. That's all it was.
Michael Rubin wants to know, did you ever do hard way?
Hell yeah. Yeah. In the back of my head, I had this scar where the guy turned me around, and I was still not new in the business, but instead of me taking the chair shot, I bent my head forward and the lip of the chair just split me open. So when he hit me and I went like this, like, holy shit, that fucking hurt. These two fingers went like to the back. And when I went to lift my hand, like if I was doing these headphones, I went under the headphones and I'm like, what the hell? How come my hand can't come off? And then I pull my hand forward and I saw all this blood. Well, my two fingers went under the tear that was in my head. And the reason I couldn't lift my hand up is because it was under my skin. And since my head was hit so hard, it numbed it, basically. So I didn't really know my head was split up until I started noticing blood pouring out of my head.
What match was that Do you remember?
That was not an ECW match. It was an independent match. It was way before ECW. It was in Queens in the 90s, like early 90s, 94, 96, something like that.
What now we've covered a lot of ground about the negatives of blood. What do you think is the primary reason for it to be a positive, so to speak, for the break it down this way, for the story, for the wrestlers, and for the fans?
You mean the good?
Yeah, the good.
I mean, it just depends on the promotion, man. I mean, I can't see Impact doing it. I can't see WWE doing it unless it was a good stuff. But in Puerto Rico, it runs wild, you know. I mean, because like I said, it's all about telling the story. And again, the good is if you get a good storyline and a good booker and a good, you know, promoter, and it makes sense, the fans are going to eat it up. And that's the key thing. When I won the title, like I know it wasn't a bloody match, but when I won the title at the Hardcore Road Trip, people were like, didn't expect that to happen. They really thought Too Cold was going to win. And when we swerved them and I won, I'm not going to lie, people were like there was that pause, just like I'm doing right now, like almost like the, you know, Brock Lesnar losing, Brock Lesnar beating Undertaker. The guy was like, holy shit, what? They didn't expect it. And then after like it was done, everybody's like, oh, yeah. And they clapped and they got excited because it was a swerve to the fans and they got excited. So as long as you tell a solid story that makes sense, the fans are going to appreciate it more when you finally get to that point where blood is shed. When like I said, the Flaming Tables match again, it was not bloody. Yeah, it was a little bit. But what I remember the most, even though I got burned, is, I mean, we went off the air, not went off the air, but it was like Joey Styles already went to the next segment. Oh, that was an awesome match, you know, Cyrus and, you know, they were going to go talk about the next match. But when we were clearing out the ring and they, you know, people thought I was really hurt, which I was, and I stood up, everybody clapped. All the fans clapped. They were like applauding me. And DeVito's like, I was hurting bad. But DeVito was like, hey, brother, you hear that? They appreciated the match of what we did. And I mean, I had skin hanging and stuff. And, you know, that felt good when the fans appreciate your work at the end of it. Then, I mean, yeah, it hurt, but I was like, man, it felt good like that. Like, okay, I risked my body for a reason. And when you don't risk it for a reason, then you're like, man, what the fuck? Why did the fuck I do this? You know, that's the good part. When your fans stand and applaud, you know, stand at attention and applaud you. That's where the good comes in.
And is it not true that in certain circumstances and certain promotions, a hardcore / bloody match really took the promotion to the next level? And I think, here is our mystery guest just when I'm about to talk about barbed wire. Let me bring him.
Oh, Man Pondo?
No.
Yeah, mystery guest.
Oh, man.
Surprise,
Hannibal.
surprise. Who would have figured?
Oh, man, look at that handsome face.
Thank you. I actually met you in Wichita a couple of years ago.
did.
You were with Rodney Mack hanging out backstage.
Yeah, we met for a few minutes. I mean, you know, you were busy, you know, but it was a pleasure meeting you that day. It was a blast, you know.
Speaking of blood, the Blood Hunter wrestled Sandman that day, and that match got very bloody.
I did see that. That was a very bloody match, you know. I was like, Jesus Christ, that's a lot of blood. It was good. It was good. Fans enjoyed it. You know, it was a blast, you know. Sandman did a lot of bloody matches, you know.
I actually just posted a video because you were about to talk about barbed wire of Sandman talking about his barbed wire matches with Mick Foley and showing some of his scars.
You know, one thing I was thinking about is Sabu when he did that, the Terry Funk, and he jumped and he cut his bicep open. And
Yeah, I was just going to touch on that as making that promotion, actually, that actual match itself.
The
but did you
thing
see his
about that
face?
match, though, is it didn't like. Although the barbed wire was brutal, it looked like they were just doing spots to me. Like it didn't look like they were actually fighting that hard. It looked really dangerous, and they hurt themselves really bad. But it looked more of like they were performing spots, and you hear Sabu call for the tape, and like it didn't look like a fight to me, but it was definitely brutal.
Yeah, I mean, his face when he hit those barbed wires, and again, I keep watching that. Don't see where it happened. I mean, I know where it happened, but I didn't see like the tear or like how it pulled. But I mean, from my perspective, I know Sabu, but again, I never asked him about that match. But just looking at the video, like his eyes were open up like two little saucers. Like, holy shit, look what I fucking did! I think I just tore my bicep open. But they said it was brutal, man. And I mean, I would shit on myself if I mean, look at Necro when he cut that meat on the back of his bicep, and all you saw is that gray matter just seeping out. Now, my asshole will pucker. I'm tough, but I'm not. I'm not gonna lie. I'll fucking freak out. Call the batch. Call the batch.
Yeah, and at the end, they were actually trapped in the barbed wire. They both. I remember reading Terry Funk's book. Like the more they were moving, the more it was actually entrapping them, which must have been really scary.
It's like a freaking anaconda, just constricting, on you and stuff. It's just crazy, I mean, but like I said, those guys are legends, and then they're known for that stuff. I mean, I commend them for it. I mean, but I'm not gonna lie. I'm be honest with you guys. I'm tough. I do it, but I'm the biggest, like internally, like, oh Jesus Christ, I'm a big wimp. I'm just like, Jesus, this is fucking crazy. But I'll do it. I'm tough in the outside.
I don't even think they had a doctor backstage, because I think I remember Sabu telling me when I was driving with him that he super glued himself that night.
I heard that.
Like, there's not. They knew that it was going to get crazy, and there's not even a doctor backstage.
Yeah, I remember one time DeVito hard weighed himself. We were wrestling Balls and Axel, and Axel, I still remember, it was in North Carolina. Axel hit him over the head with the chair, and he dropped his blade and picked it up with the left hand, and he's right-handed. And I'm laying next to him, and he cut himself open. And I'm talking like, it didn't look much, but when he did it, his whole forehead just opened up like a vagina, and it was bleeding. And I'm laying there like, holy fuck. And we super glued it, super glued it shut. I mean, the super glue is your best friend, man.
We were just debating back and forth, Hannibal, the merits and negative aspects of blood in wrestling. And I know you have had an extensive career, thinking of your time in Puerto Rico and elsewhere, where you're quite acquainted with that style. What in your view makes blood a positive in a match, and conversely a negative?
Well, I would say particularly for those barbed wire matches, it's fine if like it's AEW or WWE where they're actually testing wrestlers, but you have to be careful if it's an indie show where you're not tested, because if you get thrown into the barbed wire and those spikes go into you, then your opponent gets thrown into it. Those same spikes are going into them. So it's just like sharing a needle, and people aren't always going to be honest about their testing. So as an indie wrestler, I would be careful about doing a barbed wire match for $100 or $200, considering that there's also that risk above the damage. But it's good. I heard you, Angel, talking earlier. It adds drama to a match. Fans like violence. People have liked violence since the Roman Colosseum days. That's why Abdullah the Butcher and the Sheik were so popular, doing all that crazy blood, taking it to an extreme. Of course, you don't want to do it every match on a show. I remember wrestling in Puerto Rico, and one time they did it so much on one show that like it literally looked like a slaughterhouse in the dressing room after, because of course they didn't have doctors there either. People would just come back and bleed all over while they fixed their wounds. But no, I think it's useful. Obviously, I think WWE is allowing it now again with certain people, like we saw with Brock Lesnar, but only if they do it hard way, which is a little strange. And AEW is doing it regularly. So
I think the hard way part is because they say, well, it was just an accident. We can't stop an accident, instead of say, hey, we're going to blade it, and they try to stop you. Say you can't do that on TV. But if you say it was a hard way, then they can't, stop you. I had a quick question. I mean, you, like I said, you wrestled in Puerto Rico. I wrestled in Puerto Rico. When I wrestled in Puerto Rico, the blood matches there seemed kind of a little bit different, that the fans appreciated it more, and their storylines are just more, I'm using the word robust. When the fans finally saw you bleed, it meant something, and they got more excited compared to, my opinion, in the U.S. I don't know. I always love Puerto Rico, the way they just react to us when we're out there, and the wahs, and when you get hit, wah, wah, it just still gives me goosebumps when you hear the fans go off that. So, I mean, do you think in Puerto Rico, they just see it a little bit different than they do in the U.S.?
Well, to your point, I think I didn't see Backlash myself other than clips, but I heard it was one of the loudest wrestling events of all time, being in Puerto Rico. And
But even your
Carlito got the
experience,
loudest pop, apparently, who's coming to Great North Wrestling July the 15th. But they like violence there more than in the U.S., I think. They're used to it. It's a violent culture. They still allow cockfights and stuff. So I think they enjoy the violent style more. I never bled all that much in Puerto Rico. I think I only bled once in IWA and maybe 5 times in WWC. It was more the local Puerto Rican guys that like to do it, I think. I don't think the Americans did it that much. Did you have to bleed much when you were over there?
Yeah, but it was always built with the Glamour Boy Shane. I did matches with him, but it was built up to it. And then when they put me in the hardcore matches, it still was like built up to it. Because even when we were back and forth with the title, it was just almost like the 24-hour championship. It was just back and forth, back and forth. That's why I'm like 7-time champion. But when I did wrestle Shane, there was no blood, and it was like when we finally got our hands on each other and when blood was dripped, fans were just exploding, and that, I mean, I still remember enjoyed it. It made sense. I don't bleed for everybody. I gotta have trust.
Yeah, exactly. And if you bleed for someone, it's like kind of a sign of respect that you're willing to go to that length to make them look good. And by the way, there's a picture from that night in Wichita. And there's another bonus. If you're a mask wrestler and you bleed on a mask, the fans will buy it for more money for whatever reason. I don't know if you've ever experienced that with blood on your gear. Did you notice that fans pay more for that?
Yeah, absolutely. Blood is green, man. Red is green. It gives you more money, But I mean, I saw when I was in Canada, and then I did that. One of the guys, some fan bought some guy's, I think, what was his name? God damn it, now I forgot. Chaos? It's Chaos? Well, anyway, he bled all over his shirt. It was white, and the fan bought it. I mean, it was like ridiculous money. And then they posted on Facebook, and it was framed, and it was brown.
Yeah, that happened once, actually, when I wrestled Abdullah in a match. I guess we went into the crowd, and I got blood all over someone's shirt. And this was for a different promoter, and he was all mad at first, saying that I'd have to pay for the shirt. And then like 20 minutes later, he came back and he wanted me to autograph the shirt because the fan was so happy that he got our blood on the shirt. So the fans love it. And I think at that same show, my friend was watching it. And this is kind of a funny story. After the show, some guy from the town takes his finger, dips his finger in the blood, in one of the puddles of blood that's around the ring, licks it, and he tells his friend, "Hey, I told you it was pig's blood." As if like we're carrying bags of pig's blood.
Fuck that, dude. That's I mean, like I said, there's a lot of things that fans do that I'm just like, I can't believe that motherfucker did that. I mean, you don't know us, you don't know what we have. You know, just because I'm Angel doesn't mean I'm fucking. I mean, I am clean, but you know what I mean. I don't take a risk like that. You know, did you get paid more for blading?
Yeah, a fan wants to know. Michael Rubin wants to know: did you get paid more for blading?
Fuck, what the fuck? No, I'm not gonna blade for free. You know, I mean, I'm disfiguring my face. You know, to entertain the fans. Yeah, like I said, red is green. That means you get more money. You know, but see, that's the problem. These guys on the indies are doing it nilly-willy, and it takes away the power from the wrestler when they go to a promoter and they say, hey, we want you to get some color. I said, well, you got to pay me more, you know, and it just ruins it.
Not at Great North Wrestling, though. We're a very egalitarian business. So let's say indies accept Great North Wrestling. Okay.
No, yeah, except Great North Wrestling. But you know what I mean. I mean, like I heard stories like back in the days when we used to go to Japan, we used to get paid a lot of money to go to Japan. And then these indie workers are just going up there for free, paying their own flight to go out there just to stay at the dojo and wrestling for peanuts. They, you know, promoter be like, oh, I don't need you. I could hire Miguel Sanchez from fucking Wichita, Kansas, and they'll fly himself in. It just takes away the power from the boys.
Puerto Rico, they never offered more to bleed, though. I remember turning down once at one point because Carlos wasn't always honest with his pay. Sometimes he'd go for a week. I don't know if you ever wrestled for WWC.
No, but I heard stories.
They asked me at one point when they were way behind to get color, and I went to Carlos's other son, Eddie, and I'm like, I'm not getting color. You guys owe me too much money. So then they dropped it.
Yeah, I bumped into Mustafa in Puerto Rico. I mean, it was at a gas station because I was working for IWA and he was working for Carlos, and we were just talking. And I don't know how he came up in the conversation. And he goes, "Yeah, I'm like 3 weeks behind in pay, you know, because you know the dad keeps going. I mean, I'm not. This is what he said. He says the dad just was not able to pay him, you know. And he's like, so if they came up to me and said, "Hey, we want you to get color," and I'm 3 weeks behind, no, dude, you got to pay me and to get color, you know. I mean, I'm not being egotistical, but I mean, it's just like any job. You're here to make money. You're here to go home with money, to feed your family. So anything that you do to try to make extra cash, you know, definitely get your money's worth, you know.
Yeah, and it was so overdone in WWC at that point that, like, since so many matches had blood, you have a 9-match card and 6 of the matches there's blood. It really doesn't mean much. IWA was a little bit better booked. I think they were destroying WWC at one point, and then it kind of evened out once Victor died.
What do you guys think about the fact that for a good long while there, John Moxley seemed to bleed, you know, gratuitously on every AEW program, which seems to run counter to the narrative that we're living in a more sanitized environment for the wrestling product, and obviously the network really you know, didn't step in or object, and we had, you know, Jericho and Gage with the pizza cutters, et cetera, et cetera. So that was kind of a head scratcher to me that I thought that would have some negative repercussions, but it didn't. Have we turned a corner on that for mainstream product even?
He has creative control, though. I know that him and Jericho, as well as some other wrestlers on the roster, have pretty much freedom of their angles and creativity. And Tony Khan seems to be a bit of a pushover boss in some ways. Maybe there was behind the scenes pushback from the network. Maybe there wasn't. We don't know. But that's probably more John Moxley liking to blade and being part of his own storylines, because there are people addicted to blading, like Abdullah was, and there's people addicted to cutting themselves without blading. But you do get a rush from kind of like the fan reaction to blading. I find it like gives you a rush. And, you know, sometimes I remember when you're going through a lot of stress, and I know this sounds crazy, but when you've had a really bad day and somehow you wrestle and you bleed, it's like a release. It's like you've released like this pressure from your head and you feel better after. So I can see why some people like it, but yeah.
Well, back in the days, I bladed just to get out of work, you know, and then be like, oh man, I just hit myself on the shelf.
Yeah. Well, I actually heard Marty Jannetty say that's a way to get out of drunk driving. They used to just keep a blade, and if they were pulled over for drunk driving,
Really?
they'd themselves and be like, "We're on our way to the hospital. We were just coming from a match. Look."
Oh, that's classic.
Yeah.
Just gigging yourself. That is classic. Yeah, that will get you. That might get you out of there, you know. But like I said, that's the only time I ever blade is just get out of work. Hey, Jack, do you ever blade yourself to get out of work?
No, but I've done a few pratfalls inside the institution, and that seems to work. There's compensation lined up for that. That reminds me of the famous scene in The Wrestler where Randy the Ram was working the deli counter, and
he punched it,
cut his finger on the meat slicer, and that was it.
Yeah, it was his. He punched it and he cut his like.
Oh, did he do that? Okay, I thought he.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, he just punched it, and I remember he cut himself. I mean, I could be wrong. That's the vision I remember in my head. Yeah, that movie, man. I mean, like I said, it just. I know it fall off track, but watching those matches, I mean, not matches, the Wrestler, it's just like Jesus Christ. You know, it was a sad movie. It's to the letter of how, you could be a major star one day and then you're wrestling at some bingo hall in Virginia with 10 people in the audience, and that's your bread and butter, and that's what I felt bad about
wrestlers
Balls.
Like that. That's a true story to a lot of wrestlers. Like I watched the resurrection of Jake Roberts recently, and it just depressed me at the end, because even though he might be doing better, I know there's so many more wrestlers out there that don't have DDP help and are just going down that negative drain, unfortunately.
I remember when Balls, was living in Jersey, and he was living in it was like one of those like cabins where you're only there for the weekend. They're not bungalows, but they're just little by the river, and he was living in there and just surviving off wrestling. And I also remember one time he put his son, which true story, put his son he was in a child seat, and he put him on the table, and he goes, "Buy my gimmicks, I gotta feed my kid. Buy my gimmicks." And I'm like, "Boss, you really putting your son on the table begging for people to buy your gimmicks?" And he's like, "Yeah, man, I gotta make money." And I'm like, "Bro, it just that's just kind of heavy-hearted, man. I want all the boys to be successful and make money, but if you're just making nothing and you're trying to survive off wrestling, that's scary,
Well, that movie is a topic that has been we've bantied about as a potential future discussion point that I'm interested in from a number of levels. But we're just about at the end of the hour, so we're going to have to bump our new segment, "What If," to the next show.
No, we can do that.
Now?
You can do it. I'll tap out. But nice seeing you again, Angel, and we hope to see you up here in Canada sometime.
Absolutely, brother. It's a pleasure seeing you, man. Take care.
Thanks, Animal.
Bye.
No, I mean, we don't have to do it. We could do it the next show. Like I said, I said that. I meant like we can do it next time around.
Yeah, I think we should. I think we should bump it and have the fans submit questions on social media, submit their input on social media in advance, and also, contribute on the stream. But I'm telling you, this is this topic, like the hardcore topic, is definitely one that is polarizing. And my personal opinion, bottom line is there is a spot for blood in wrestling, but not if it's overexposed, not if it's gratuitous, and it has to make sense. What do you think?
It always has to make sense. No, it always has to make sense. Like I said, it's like a movie that doesn't have a plot. If it doesn't have a plot, it will never make sense. Yeah, you see tanks blowing up, you see guys with guns, but if you don't have a good story to give people something to cheer for, then it's just a waste of your time,
Absolutely. Well, speaking of hardcore individuals, I want to take a second and plug the fact that our next episode 6, is going to be within near record time, because on May the 16th at 7 p.m., we have one of the gangsters, your colleague, a man who has really cut his own path in professional wrestling, a fascinating individual, and that would be Mustafa on Shooting from the Hip. How do you feel about that, Angel?
No, absolutely. I'm pretty excited because I never was in the ring with Mustafa. I mean, there's some stories. There's some stories about when he left, and I was supposed to do an angle in regards about Mustafa's leaving ECW, and I would like to talk about that because at some point it was supposed to be. I remember New Jack telling me that he was trying to start in the New Gangsters and he was looking for a replacement for Mustafa, and I was in the running for it. But then, of course, things went its own path, and the Baldies came into play. So, I would love to talk about that.
You could do a show on the stables you weren't selected for, unfortunately.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But again, it's just so funny, like I said, to find out why he left, in regards to what happened. And, and maybe he's not aware of what I was supposedly be his replacement, supposedly. And I could tell you the story of that night of what we did to try to build it up. It was freaking that night.
Let us save that and many more for next Tuesday, May the 16th at 7 p.m. Eastern. Fans, if you want to get your questions in for Angel or Mustafa, please submit them, watch the live stream, and we'll incorporate them into the show.
Absolutely, man. I just wanted to appreciate all you guys watching the show. Bat, thanks for the compliment. Scott, awesome. Craig, thank you for being on. We appreciate you guys. I know we didn't talk about the things you were talking about, but we'll definitely do better next show. But again, I was watching. I appreciate you guys for giving us the support. So, just tune in next week and ask those questions, man, or send us those questions so we can talk about them.
Yeah, this in conception, when we were talking about this, is a fan-friendly show. And fans, if you have ideas for shows that you'd like to have covered here on Shooting from the Hip, send them to the Kingpin or myself, and we'll definitely take that into account and possibly
say shoals again, because you said shoals like. You mean shows? Not Scholes. Scholes is Dr. Scholes when you put in your shoes.
Shows. I'm Canadian. I have an accent. I hear that all the time.
A boot.
Exactly, my man.
Like my whatever. My New York accent.
That's right. I love it.
It's a classic, brother. But again, I appreciate you, Jack. Again, awesome show. I wish I was there. I'm excited about the next show. Khalid going to be there. Dude, fans, keep an eye out. There's going to be a lot of surprises, a lot of announcements. Don't miss it. You ain't going to regret it. I'm telling you, it's Kingpin approved.
And that is the stamp that everyone wants to have but doesn't. So before we close, I'll just do one last plug. Fans, go to ticketweb.ca. Smiths Falls, July the 15th, Great North Wrestling, our second event in this season. It's going to be huge. Carlito will be on the card. Ted Hart, my main man, Magnum McLaren, and the big guy will be on the card, and many, many more. Oh, Jeremy Prophet, the Canadian champion, will be on the card defending the title. We've just got a loaded show for those fans, and as those that were in Ottawa can attest, nobody left the show unhappy. Everyone went home happy, and we're going to do the same in Smith Falls. So check it out. Get your tickets now and get them early. Kingpin,
absolutely. And Craig, definitely keep that in mind. We'll definitely ask Mustafa about what you just asked in regards about him doing another gangster with somebody else, and see what he says.
Yep, fans. Once again, get your tickets, but get your questions in for the show on Tuesday. It's going to be a banger. And for the Kingpin, Angel Medina, I am the gentleman, Jack Kilby. See you next time on Shooting from the Hip.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Follow us on Twitter at the Hannibal TV for instant updates.